honor to have two important guests. I call it a double benefit. That I initially invite妙乐法师. She is the director of Nanping 别院 belong to Foguangshan. That's a downtown branch of Foguangshan in Kaohsiung City. She is also an old friend of mine. I initially invited her to be our class to speak, to introduce you the development of Buddhism in Taiwan society. And yesterday I told her that because this class is proceeded in English, so she wants to invite妙光法师to be with her and to be her translator, because妙光法师was a Taiwanese, and she moved to Australia after she graduated from elementary schools, and then she stayed in Sydney, right? Yes. Sydney, Australia, until she graduated from colleges, and then she became members of Foguangshan. So I call it a double benefit, that I invited one a friend, and then two friends appears. So I think today that we will have a very fruitful lessons. Please join me to welcome them.
Okay, good morning. How are you? Fine. Sorry? Fine? Not good? Why? Because of your midterm exams?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's a torture, right? By the time you graduate from school, you will miss all these student days. Yes, believe me. Yes. First of all, please allow me to introduce myself briefly. My name is Miao Guang, has been said by Professor Tsai. I was born in Taiwan, and then when I graduated primary school, my entire family moved to Australia. And so I studied in high school and university. And during this time, I had the chance to volunteer at the local Buddhist temple because my parents brought me there every weekend. And so for that reason, I started to get acquainted with Buddhism as a religion as well as a practice, while spending time with my teenage friends who were also brought to the temple. And so I think throughout those years, as a teenager who actually had to grow up in a different environment, learning a new language, having friends and religion that I was familiar with actually was a very, very big help. And because I didn't really know any English at all until I moved to Australia. So the day I arrived in Australia, the most of the things I know are the 26 letters of the alphabet from A to Z. But for the rest, I actually learned there. And it was actually quite interesting because during the early 90s, a lot of families from Taiwan and Hong Kong migrated to Australia. And so to the children, to have Asians around their classes, it was actually something new. Class that not many of us actually spoke English. And so growing up was actually a bit tough for me. Yeah. But anyways, I think that was the opportunity for me to really learn English because I had a pretty interesting experience. Unlike my sister or my brother, who actually immediately made friends with their Taiwanese classmates, of all the schools that I attended in Australia, actually none of them spoke Chinese. And so I was forced to speak English every day. And by that way, I learned much faster. So I believe for you to have classes like this, when you have to attend and the teachers speak to you in complete English or a different language, that actually puts you on the edge because you have to listen to a second language every day and actually have to speak it. Yeah, so today I think I'm giving you the opportunity to give you a basic introduction about Buddhism. I'm not sure how many of you are actually familiar with Buddhism, but I believe having grown up in Taiwan, you would have had Buddhism as a part of your life. For example, You would see temples near your houses. During the July month of the year, you'd see people, making offerings and having services and chantings. So all of these are actually a part of the Taiwanese culture that you will see. But of course today, can I just see a show of hand? How many of you are actually familiar with the word Buddhism? No, 1, 2, okay.
Usually we mix the Buddhism and Taoism.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, that's
society.
yes. That's the interesting part about religion in Taiwan, because we would say there's such a word as a culturalization. Okay, something foreign comes into the country, and then it blends in with the local culture, and then it forms something completely new. So for the kind of Buddhism we actually see in Taiwan would be a good blend of Taoism and maybe some of the local folk practices. And so that's why in the Chinese temples you would see those two things that look like crescent moons, like a guahui, Yes. If you go to other Buddhist temples in different parts of the world, you don't see them, because to them they had a different way of doing so. So that's the kind of thing. So you see very interesting practices and developments in Taiwan. Yeah, but first thing first, I think I will use this opportunity to sort of present Buddhism in a nutshell to everyone today. Okay, and so I will begin with the idea of religion. Is it okay if we get all religious today?
Yeah, no.
Okay, yeah. So we'll focus on the entire idea of religion as for today. Okay, and so 2 of you are actually familiar with Buddhism. What about the rest of you? What is your religious background? No religious belief?
No.
So what would you call yourself then? What would you call yourself for someone who doesn't have a religious belief? You're thinking of that word, right?
Yeah.
Usually you say, okay, I don't have a religious belief, so I call myself an atheist. Sorry? You thought of this word, right? But actually when you call yourself an atheist, you're someone who does not believe in God. I do not believe in God. Yeah. So if you go to Catholic countries and you say, I'm not a Catholic, I'm not a Christian, I'm an atheist, they will think of you as someone who is, what's the word? Is a heretic. Okay? But these are actually pretty strong words. Okay? That means people who actually either don't believe in God or are against Christianity. And so today we actually have a much new word. Okay? So you say, okay, I do not have a religious belief, I'm still searching for my belief. You can call yourself a free thinker. Okay? So I'm a free thinker, I'm neither a Buddhist, I'm neither a Catholic. But I could one day be practicing a totally different new religion. Okay, so I went to Indonesia last week, and I had a chance to come across some Muslims and Buddhists along the way. And we had some pretty interesting discussions. And so a lot of them actually call themselves free thinkers, even in Singapore. I mean, in Singapore, such a developed country. In Singapore, you will see people going to temples of Guanyin Miao, or Indian temples, Hindu Miao, or even churches, or even mosques. So there's a big variety of religious practices that can be involved. But when you can actually come together, you have a conversation with each other. Okay? You start to sort of get acquainted with what each other is thinking. Yeah, so today, let's go back to the word religion. Okay? What do you think of religion is? How would you define religion? Because by the way I look, I'm obviously someone who's religious. 这样讲会不会太快? Am I okay? Okay. If I'm going too fast, put up your hand and ask me a question. Okay?
We both are from Indonesia.
Oh, okay.
So you just
Yes. Yeah, I went to Semarang last week. Yeah, Semarang. I went to the Borobudur, very beautiful place in the mountains. we talk about religion, okay, there's a few factors that actually make up something. Okay, you don't say, okay, I believe in a thought, and then therefore I have a religion, right? What are the factors of a religion?
A group of people believing the same thing.
Okay, a group of people who believe in the same thing, so they are the followers, right?
Yes.
Anything else? What do they follow? They follow some kind of belief, right? Some kind of belief or some kind of teaching. Or sometimes we call this a doctrine. A doctrine, 教法, 教理, okay? And now, one other factor that makes up a religion, very, very important. Where does the doctrine come from? A leader, right? Sorry, you had something?
Kind of leader.
Yeah, a leader, right? Or, yes, a founder. Yes, or a teacher. A founder or a teacher that presents a set of doctrines, right? And that is followed and believed by a group of followers who continue their practice in what has been taught. Usually in that case, we have a religion. Yeah, so in a way, Buddhism also make up for a religion in this aspect. Okay, first of all, we have a founder, who is Buddha, right? Sakyamuni Buddha, in bracket. Okay? And Buddha has taught different truths. Okay? Say, for example, cause and effect, 因果, or dependent origination, 因缘果报. A set of doctrines and also followers like us, the Buddhist nuns or Buddhist monks, who actually live and practice the doctrines every day, as well as sharing such teachings every day. So therefore, with these three pivots, we have Buddhism as a religion. Okay? But you might say, okay, we would say Christianity, Catholicism, even Muslim, they have a similar thing, right? The Muslims, they believe in Allah, teacher or founder, and they have the Quran, right? The Quran, we believe, the teachings of Allah. And then you have a group of followers. Actually, what I found very interesting when I went to Borobudur last week, 我上个星期到这个婆罗浮屠，就是这个佛教圣地。And I was walking on the actual site. As I was walking the entire hour, I could hear someone from a group of Muslims chanting the Quran down at the bottom of the mountain. So it was actually a very interesting experience because to me, I was actually trying to really experience and get the gist of a very ancient Buddhist site. And then in the background, you keep hearing, the Quran, the chantings. Yes. So they're actually very devoted. And even in the temple I stayed, at 5 a.m., they would start chanting, right? Are you familiar with the Muslims in Indonesia? Yes. So they chant 5 times a day, okay? And each time for about an hour. How long do they chant for? Okay. In the afternoon. 4 p.m. 6 p.m. And then 7 p.m. Yeah. Very long times. Yeah. But they do it every day. They do it every day with such devotion. Okay? And so for us, you've got to wonder how can someone who is born into a religion, right? When you are born, you actually are born Muslim. Okay? For some people, they are born Buddhist. And then in the process of their growing up, you're being taught different ways of practice. For example, chanting, or you have to lay prostrations, and so on. And so what is it that gives them unconditional belief and devotion to such a religion that they do it all the time? I think that's something which actually crossed my mind as a young adult since young. You know, we got to start thinking, okay, what is actually the purpose of life? What do we actually do in life besides studying? Okay, and once we study, where will we be headed? Okay, if we go towards a career, okay, and when we become successful yet still unhappy, what is going to be the thing that supports us mentally when we are unhappy or when we feel hopeless? This is the moment where your belief could come in, whatever it is. But we have many different kinds of belief nowadays. It's not necessarily a religion. Right? So for young people, for a lot of people, their belief would be Steve Jobs, the things they do, right? Yes, you know, a gadget he invents, or maybe the kind of things he invented that changes the life. Okay? And for some people, you might have a different kind of belief. Okay? And so I'm not sure what your belief in life right now is. But you are in a very crucial moment of life where you need to start finding your directions and maybe perhaps decide one day this belief that you have chosen will support you for the rest of your lives. Okay? So I'm not sure what you can do, but with a lot of young adults, I actually come across, I have a summer program for Wangshan every August. And every August, we have students from America and Europe who come to stay for a month. They don't speak any Chinese, but they come to experience a monastic life. They want to live like the Buddha, to see what he did every day, and how this practice actually affects them. Okay? And so with this part, I'm going to share with you later. But let's sort of go back to this discussion with religion. Okay? So we've developed that Buddhism, religion, Catholicism, and even Muslims have similar factors within that makes up a religion. Okay? So first of all, we have the founder, the doctrine, and the teachers. But there are also some other aspects that actually make a set of beliefs fit for a religion. Okay? So usually you have an authority. Okay? For example, you are placed in the judgment of God. One example. Or there's some kind of ritual. Just like we said, the Muslims have to chant every day, and they have to prostrate in the direction of the sun, and so on. Okay? And for Buddhists, we chant every day as well, or we make incense offerings. We make incense offerings. But then in the process of that, you start to have also the rituals that come from a set of traditions. Say, for example, for the Buddhists, okay, they pray or they prostrate to the Buddha in a certain way. For the Muslims, they prostrate in the direction of the sun, and so on. So there's a tradition that follows where you just start to do something without having to ask because it has been done from the past, since the past a long time. And then number 5, you're actually at the grace of this founder of your religion. Okay? So for example, God bless you. When we say that, or Buddha bless me. When I pray to the Buddha, I hope that the Buddha can answer my prayer and fulfill my wish, and so on. So for that, we put ourselves in the grace of this founder. And then there's a little bit more, which is the mystery, okay? You read a lot of stories of miracles or mysteries in different religions. You know, just Moses himself was the perfect example of a mystery, okay? Where he made the ocean split into 2 parts, yes, so all the Jewishes can escape the Egyptians and so on. So you have all sorts of stories like this. But now let's sort of go a little bit further to see, okay, if we are doing all of this, why have I chosen Buddhism, or why am I presenting Buddhism today? Okay, based on this 6 aspects, let's take a look at how Buddhism becomes a little bit different. Okay, first of all, when we speak of authority, okay, all right, okay, good. We say we're at the mercy of God, okay? God can punish you or judge you or decide to grant mercy on you and so on. But Buddha did something a little bit different, okay? And there's also one of the reasons why so many Westerners actually chose this religion, because of this saying. Can I get someone to read this out for me? The ones in italics. Who would like to read?
Henry.
Volunteer. Okay, Terry?
Henry.
Oh, Henry? Okay.
Do not accept what you hear by knowledge. Do not accept tradition. Do not accept the statement because it is one in our roots, nor because it is in accordance with your belief, or because it is the same as your teacher. But be left unto yourselves those who either now or after and that day should rely upon themselves. It is they who should reach the topmost height.
Okay, thank you very much, Henry. Did you learn English before you came to this school?
Yes.
Where are you from? Taoyuan. Oh, okay. But have you been overseas? Okay, you have a very good pronunciation. Yeah, you have that American accent. Okay, anyway, so from this verse, let's sort of see, okay, how Buddhism begins to differ from other religions by defying this idea of an authority. Okay, so usually in a religion we're being told to do as we're taught. Okay, just do it. Don't ask questions. Okay, and as I said before, when a lot of Westerners come to Australia, we sort of ask them, why would you have interest in Buddhism? And they will say, oh, it's because Buddhism is open. Just from as early as the Buddha, he is giving you an open option in saying, okay, it's your choice. You don't have to believe unless you want to. Okay? So that gives up a lot of space for someone who's searching for a belief. Okay? It's not actually forced into you, but rather it's giving you a choice. So in a way saying, okay, whatever it is that you hear in Buddhism from now on, please question it. Please experiment with it. Please prove it is right before you decide to believe in it and follow it. Even in my own words, as the Buddha. Okay, so in Buddhism, there is no authority. The only authority is yourself. You get to decide. Isn't that good? If we ever get to make all our decisions in life, okay, we would have so much power. But we would then require the wisdom to make sure that we make all the right decisions. And secondly, there is a lot of rituals that we are experiencing right now. But we can go back to as early as the Buddha's time, which is 2,600 years ago. Okay? Most of the things that the Buddha himself did was to walk around, maybe beg for food, but most of the time he practiced meditation and spoke to his disciples. Okay? So there's no certain thing as a religion, a ritual back in the Buddha's time. He didn't say that, okay, in order for you to believe in me, you have to pray or prostrate in front of me or so on. But the only reason that those actually exist were because of the local cultures. Okay? Say the Indians were taught to revere their teachers by laying themselves down, all four limbs and the head, to show the utmost reverence. But that was a part of the Indian culture. And even in Taiwan right now, you're seeing different ways, say incense offering. Okay? Back in the Buddhist time, there was no incense. Okay? There were different ways of offering, but once again, the Buddha never introduced them. So that is what we mean by acculturation. You fit into the local culture. Okay. So Buddha himself never actually gave that any of these ceremonies. But
what I wonder what is incense mean?
Incense, 香，我们拜拜拿的那个香 is incense.
Why call it incense offering?
Incense offering in a religious ritual. Okay, when we are facing a founder or God, we would say, I would like to make an offering to you. 供养，就是呈现的意思。Yes. And so in this case, when Buddhists light up incense, right? Some of the incense actually give a lot of very nice fragrance. And so in making that incense, it's kind of an offering to the Buddha or whoever they believe in, as a way of reverence. So you could even offer fruits, 水果,供果,供香. And in today's Buddhist temples, you can actually other ways of offering, such as flowers, or maybe in some of the practices, say food, or even clothing. Or for you, you could say, I remember when the Buddha Memorial Center was first being built, we're actually gathering the artifacts of the 21st century so we can place it in a time capsule. And this little boy, he says, oh, I would like to contribute to this time capsule. 时间胶囊, 都是我们所谓的地宫. And so we asked him, what would you like to offer? He says, I would like to offer my favorite toy, a set of Lego, to the time capsule. Okay? So from that little boy, he was offering his most precious belonging, treasure, his greatest treasure, which although was a set of Lego, but probably his greatest possessions. So the practice of offering, it's actually very important with the fact that it comes from your heart. Okay? So today you could offer a drink to your girlfriend, and that could change her because she could feel your sincerity. Okay? So in that way we make all kinds of offerings. But once again, we could sort of say this came from a lot of the Taoist practices. Not entirely Buddhist, because Buddhism was a foreign religion to China and Taiwan as well. Okay? And so that in that way, the Buddha did not entirely encourage a ritual, because you don't do it unless you know why. And you don't bind yourself to ritual in order to call yourself religious. Okay? Thirdly, there is a speculation. Okay? Although we asked you to question whatever you have heard and try it, okay? But you need to make sure that your question is placed on the right track. So for example, there's the famous story of the Buddha, of a man who gets shot while he was in war. Okay? And it was a poisonous arrow, so his flesh started to get dark. And of course, his friends wanted to bring him to the doctor to cure him. But then this man said, oh no, don't touch me. I don't want to go to the doctor before I find out who shot the arrow. I don't want to go to the doctor before I find out what the arrow is made of. Is it made of silver or is it made of wood? And don't take me to the doctor until I find out what the poison is. That's what Buddha meant by fruitless speculation. Put your questioning on something that will lead you to an end. So a lot of people ask Buddha, okay, what is our absolute existence? Absolute existence. Where do we come from? What would我们生下来之前是什么样子？那我们本来面貌是什么？ They asked a lot of questions like this, okay? And Buddha most of the time didn't answer questions like this. He would say, instead of asking questions like this, why don't you think about what you can do to make yourself happier? Why don't you yourself do something more meaningful? For example, understanding my teachings so that you could be closer to liberation. So don't put your mind on fruitless speculation. Okay? So I have not spoken these views because they do not conduce to absence of passion or to tranquility and nirvana. Okay? So he's listed out the ultimate goals. Okay? Thirdly, tradition, as we have said before, do not go by what is handed down, nor on authority of your traditional teachings. When you know yourselves, these teachings are not good. These teachings, when followed up and put in practice, conduce to loss and suffering, then reject them. As we have said before. Okay? Put yourself at the test of the truth. Put the test at the truth, the test of your own questioning before you decide. But once again, you really have to depend on yourself. Always being that lamp on yourself. And finally, it's not really about some kind of grace and saying, okay, you pray to me and I'll give you something in return. Okay? You believe in me and I'll help you. If you don't believe me in your truth, your wish cannot come true. It really doesn't work this way. Buddha himself also went through the process of practice, suffering, and then enlightenment. So all he wanted to say is, okay, this is what I did, so you follow me. You follow the path I have given you, but you have to tread it yourself. Travel the path yourself and rely on yourself to reach your goal. Okay? Intense self-effort. And number 6, never believing anything supernatural. Okay? There's a very famous book called Secret a few years ago. I'm not sure if you have read it. Mimi. Okay? Yeah, it's a book that talks about the power of the mind, right? You just have to keep thinking about something and then it happens. Okay? But there is actually a very important link between the cause to an effect. That is a condition. For example, when you have a seed that is supposed to grow into a flower, the seed will be the cause. The flower will be the effect. But today, if I was to put the seed on the table, is it going to grow? No, right? Because you haven't given it the correct conditions, such as water or sunlight, in order for it to grow. So when you just sit there and think about something that will happen, of course, it's not going to happen. Okay? If I sit there and think, okay, let $1 million fall from the ceiling. Keep saying that. You could keep saying that for the next 10 years. It's not going to happen. But what you have to do is, like we've said before, Buddha has pointed out the fact that believe in yourself, you're the one who can make many things happen. Then don't be afraid of thinking about something, but it has to be put into action. Okay? So that's what the Buddha wanted to say. Don't believe in any miracle, because only you can make things happen. So based on that 6 factors, we can start to see how it is kind of a bit different. Buddhism is a religion that is a bit different from all the others. Okay? And now let's sort of go into the components of Buddhism as a whole. Like before, we've said the 6 factors, which is on top. Okay, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. First of all, the Buddha, a real human himself, Sakyamuni Buddha, who was the founder. Okay, and then the Dharma are the teachings that he has taught. Dharma, Bodhidharma, yes, Bodhidharma. You're referring to a mysterious guy with a beard, right? Big eyes, Bodhidharma, who is meditating against the wall, right? Yes, in his word, this actually means the teaching of wisdom, Bodhidharma. Yes, so that's where his name comes from, Dharma. Very good, the doctrines. Okay? Then thirdly, the Sangha. These are what we call the 3 treasures of Buddhism. The Sangha is basically like a community who live and practice the Buddha's teaching, or the Dharma. So like us, the venerables here. And also those who stay in the temple and also follow the daily routine. With them as the basic foundations, we can see Buddhism starts to develop in many different directions across the world. So in Taiwan, you see people like us. You go to temples, you see chantings, you hear chantings, right? But in India, you could also see a totally different development, because in India, the Buddhist temples look very different, and a lot of them live like aesthetics. In other words, they're like yogis who keep their legs crossed, or live only with a certain amount of food, or test the extreme of their physiques, and so on. Different ways of practice, but of course, once again, according to the ways of local culture. But let's go into the Buddha for now to see how this actually all began. Anyone familiar with the Buddha's life? Have you heard of a man called Siddhartha? Question? Sorry? Oh, okay, yes. It's actually a serpent. 它是眼镜蛇. Why? Okay. Okay. In India, snakes are very sacred. Yeah, they're a sign of power and mystery. Okay, so what he did, okay, let's sort of go from his birth to that, but later, okay. Siddhartha, that it was his name, he was actually born in the Sakya clan. Sakyamuni Buddha, yes. Okay, when he was born, his name was Siddhartha Gautama, actually, his full name. Siddhartha Gautama. Okay? And the reason why he's called Sakyamuni Buddha, Sakya, that's actually the name of his clan, Sijaju. Sorry? Sijaju. 还是说菩提树？菩提树。对。那你觉得释迦这个字怎么来的？或者哦，头长得像释迦的，其实是反过来耶。对啊。The fruit actually was kind of named after him because the fruit, looked like his head. Yes, yes. Good observation. Yeah. 那你觉得头上那个是什么？ You can sort of kind of see it on the picture, okay? When he was born as a prince, okay, he was born to the Sakya clans as a prince, okay? Very handsome, very smart. Okay? But the moment he was born, this Indian ascetics, 他们叫做印度的仙人，就是有点像是在修行的人。He came to Siddhartha's father and started crying. It says, basically said that this boy, when he grows up, he's going to become a savior of the world. Okay? He's going to relieve the human race from the very foundations of suffering. But I'm crying because I will not be able to witness that day because I'm already old. And this actually troubled the king a lot because he says, I finally have a son. Okay, I want him to inherit my kingdom. I don't want him to become some kind of monk, okay, who goes into this aesthetic practice to discover some kind of truth. So he actually built 4 palaces, one for winter, one for summer, one for autumn, one for spring. Okay, he tried to shield him from all the phenomena of the world. So he always lived in the best conditions, best food. He was always surrounded by young people. Okay, all the good things that only happened to him. But eventually he grew up and he realized that there has got to be more than what he's living right now. All the enjoyments and the fact that he learned all the Indian Buddhist texts, Indian ancient texts at a young age. He wanted to do something different. Okay, so that's when the 3rd stage happened. He says, there's got to be more. I want to know where we come from. Okay, I want to know what is the ultimate purpose of the human existence. But upon that exit from the palace, when he finally stepped out of his palace, he saw many different signs. Yes, he saw on the side of the roads men with epilepsy, sick people. Okay? A man who was so old, he barely had any teeth in his mouth. He could not walk straight with a bent back, and who could not really hear or see anymore. And then he also saw, besides the Ganges River, some people doing a ritual, crying very, very sadly to a dead body. Okay. So he realized, okay, what are those things? If there were oldness, old age, sickness, and death, is it something I can escape? Okay. 3 signs he saw. He started to wonder, okay, does it happen to you? Does it happen to me? Can I escape it? Okay. And then the 4th thing he saw outside the palace was a Buddhist monk. Not so much a Buddhist monk, but rather a monk, or what we call a shaman. Shaman. 平常听到 shaman 就是一个头巾围起来，然后在那里吹笛子，然后前面眼镜蛇就飘起来，那个 shaman, right? But in India, most of the people who actually did practices, we call it shaman, practitioners. This practitioner actually said to the Buddha, what you have seen is something that happens to all of us. You get old, I get sick, we all die. No one can escape from this phenomenon. He got really, really upset because he realized that whatever it is, even the people he loved the most, his father, his princess, his son, eventually they would die. Okay, so he realized, okay, I'm not going to stay in the palace and enjoy what is not real. So 4th stage, he became an ascetic or a shaman. again, a practitioner. Okay? But in the beginning, as I've said before, the Indian shamans went through the extremes because as a part of the Indian belief, they would say the only way for you to escape the limitations of your body is to transcend these limitations. So some of the shamans, say for example, they stood on one leg and never actually got on one leg for almost all the time unless they couldn't stand it. They starved themselves, they didn't eat, okay? Because they believe if you keep eating, you indulge yourself in these desires. And then you will still be bound to the limitations of the body. Or some just didn't sleep, okay? When they're tired, they would just sort of stand against the board of the tree and they would never sit down or rest. Okay? I went to India in 2006 and I actually saw this man. His legs was crossed for such a long time. I could almost not see the bottom half of his body. He walked around on a skateboard because his legs cannot be uncrossed. Yeah, I think they're pretty much stuck together. So to him, that was a well practice. So they believe that if you do all of this, you put yourself in extreme suffering and pain. You experience so much pain to the extent that once the pain comes, reach their limit, you transcend it. Okay? So he did that too. Okay? One day, during his practice, he only ate 1 grain of rice and 1 grain of sesame per day. 一麻一麦. Can you live with that? 一天就吃一个纸，或是一个 wheat. When we told that story, someone from the youth group said, perhaps back in then, the sesames were about this big, so only needed 1. But of course, that's only a joke, okay? So he did that, and he really starved himself to the extent that there's a saying that the front of his stomach actually touched the back of his spine. 前胸贴后背，大概就是这种感觉。But he still wasn't liberated, okay? The so-called liberation wasn't his sight. So until the moment he actually got up, and then this shepherdess, 一个牧羊女, she saw how weak he was, so she gave him a bowl of goat milk. He drank it, he felt rejuvenated, and so he discovered that, okay, what I have been doing will not actually lead me to liberation. What human beings do here in this world are not to put yourself in extreme suffering, nor in extreme happiness. You have to stay in the middle, okay? You have to stay in the middle, not to attach yourself to either of the things we have just mentioned. That's the only way you can be closer to the truth. And so, from that moment on, he sat down underneath the Bodhi tree. Okay? He sat and he meditated without moving. Okay? So during his meditation, this snake came. Because we will say a snake who is of mystery and of spirituality. This snake could actually sense Siddhartha's vow to really overcome the foundations of suffering in human beings. So that's why you see these serpents shielding him from the sunlight and shielding him from the rain. Okay, they were like his guardians. Okay, so if you go to India, when you see snakes, they are not really a sign of evil. Okay, they're not like Medusa's hair, but rather they are a type of guardian. We see more of these images in India, more, but in Taiwan you see less images of actually the prince or the Buddha with the snakes. Okay? So that was his life actually put in short. And then, of course, underneath the Bodhi tree, he attained enlightenment and awakened to a set of truth, which we'll talk about later. Okay? So what he did after enlightenment was that he traveled across India, basically northern India, to spread his teachings, what he actually discovered, to help kings, to help men and women, to help even the slaves, people of the lowest caste in society, to attain liberation. And then finally he entered Nirvana. Nirvana, Nirvana, absolute peace. And so, with all of this, one thing we now must discover is that the Buddha did all of this himself as a human being. Okay? He didn't present some sort of miracle and say, okay, all you need to do is believe in me because I just became enlightened. He didn't say that. Okay? So in all of this, what he wanted to do was simply put a demonstration to all of us in saying, I was here, I did this. If you follow a same path and believe in yourself, you could achieve something similar. So then we sort of go on to what he actually taught to be a part of the Dharma. Okay? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to link certain teachings that he demonstrated or spoke of to each stage of his life to get the gist of Buddhism. Okay, we don't have much time today, so we're just going to talk about the very, very basic ideas. And on this chart, you can sort of see we can divide his life into two parts. Okay, on the top part, above the Great Golden Fall, he was still Prince Siddhartha. Okay, a prince. He lived a regular life, who had a wife, who had babies. Okay, and then after the Great Fall going forward, you can sort of start to see his image as the Sakyamuni Buddha. And then in these two different stages, we will see that as Prince Siddhartha, he was pointing out the kind of problems or worries that we as human beings should pay attention to. Okay? So on this chart, you can sort of see, okay, first of all, at the level of birth, we can take a look at how Buddhism explains the coming of our existence. Okay? And we talk about this as the 12 links of dependent origination. Let's take a look at this chart briefly to see. Okay. So although the Buddha said, okay, we're not going to dwell into where we come from, but let's at least take a look at why we were born. Okay? And the reason we were born can be explained in this chart. Okay? Let's start with number 1. Okay? As human beings, do you believe that we have a soul? Yes? Yes? Do you believe we have a soul?灵魂. Who believes we have a soul? You. Okay. So if we have a soul, where would the soul go after it dies? After the body dies? Heaven? Indian. Depends. Where do you think you will go? You want to?
Someone will decide.
Oh, someone will decide. Ayo, didn't we just say you depend on yourself, right? So don't let someone decide. You can decide. You can decide. What about the rest of you? Do you believe you have a soul?
No.
No? Okay, we have a yes and a no that I can hear, okay? So for the no, who said the no? Did you say no? Okay. If you don't believe that you have a soul, then what do you think you are right now?
A part of nature.
You're a part of nature.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so basically you're as a part of the nature. When your time is up, you die, right? Okay, so what happens after you die?
I will lose my conscience, lose my mind, because I think the soul is represented through my thinking. So after I was dead, I'm dead and I cannot think anymore.
You
So
cannot
I have
think
no
anymore.
soul anymore.
So the body just dies.
Yeah.
And then what becomes of you? That's it? That's it. Okay. Yeah? Keep going. Okay. So you believe that you're without a soul, but you have thoughts, right? You have what we call a consciousness. 需要休息吗？
休息一下。
OK， 好。OK。但是休息10分钟吗？ OK, let's have a 10-minute break and then we'll come back. And bear with me for a few more minutes and I'll show you something actually more interesting after this. Okay? And so before, sorry, what's your name?
Gus.
Gus. Gus. Okay, Gus mentioned a very important word in consciousness. Okay, back in our discussion, we talked about the existence of a human being, either with a soul or maybe with thoughts and so on. But in this case, consciousness is very close to what we are looking at on this chart. Okay? What actually comes and goes, according to the Buddhists, is this consciousness that carries your thoughts, your memories, maybe even your habits, and that actually pushes you forward in this cycle of rebirth. 所谓的轮回。Cycle of rebirth. Okay? So what we're looking at here right now, when we start with number 1, okay, it says that the very basic cause of our existence is our ignorance. And so-called ignorance may be a lack of understanding of why we really are here. Okay? So in saying that, okay, I don't know why I'm here, I'm just following my feelings, my thoughts. Okay? That's the moment that begins to push you in the cycle of this existence. Okay? So once with an idea, okay, I just need to act as I am. I just need to believe in that I am what I am right now. Okay? If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I like to sleep, I should just sleep. Okay? I should just act the way my body tells me to do, my desires. And then you put that thought, those thoughts into behavior and thinking, okay, if I can do what I do, then I give myself space to indulge in whatever it is I want to do. The 5 most important desires in life: 财, 色, 名, 食, 睡. Money, sensual desire, fame, food, and sleep. Okay? Which one is most important to you?
Food.
Food, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I give you food and no sleep.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay. So for Gus, you like to, food is something that you cannot stop indulging yourself in. But for some, it could be sleep and so on, right? So you put all of these into action, and then you realize they start to form a habit in your mind. Okay? I cannot wake up until 11 o'clock, because I go to bed late. Okay? So first of all, let's use health as an example, saying ignorance of the fact that health requires plenty of rest. Okay, so some of you don't start doing your reports or stay on the net until like 2 or 3 o'clock, and then you're sleeping until 9 or 10 or even 11 to wake up. Okay, it becomes a habit. Okay, so in your mind you think, if I wake up at 8 o'clock, it is not the beginning of the day yet. 8点对我来说不是天亮，一天还没开始。Okay, in your consciousness it says that. Okay, so if that happens, okay, then it's going to keep pushing you towards the trends and the results of late night sleep or lack of sleep. Okay, so okay, put aside all these health tips. Okay, so okay, that's from 1 to 3. But if we look at it in a Buddhist sense of in that case, for us, we don't believe why we're here. Okay, we follow what we want to see. And so it is said that conception starts from the moment where your mom and dad come together, right? And so in that case, the behavior is the part where your mom and dad believe, okay, we follow the human instincts, so they come together. And then your consciousness enters the mother's womb at that moment. And in the mother's womb, at about a few months' time, name and form start. That is your physical body. You start to have your fingers, your heartbeat, and your shape. Okay? And then sensory organs. Baby continues to grow in womb. Okay? You have the 6 sense organs: ear, eyes, nose, tongue, and body. Because of these 6 sense organs, 6入, 你的眼耳鼻舌身意, they are responsible for your contact with the world. Okay? So you start to touch the world. So for example, in your mother's womb, you start to feel more temperature, moisture, and pain, and even suffering, and so on. Okay? And in that, the contact with these becomes a type of sensation. The baby starts to register in the body. Okay, that's at the level of the body. But for us, if we sort of go back to these sense organs again, say as human beings, as adults, we also have these sense organs. I come across the world with all of my body. They are responsible for passing information to me. Okay, so when I sit on this chair, if this is a very comfortable chair, okay, soft, I can relax, okay, and then sensation comes up, comfort, okay, sleepiness, okay, and then if it is a good feeling, a good sensation, desire rises. You would say, my bed is very soft, okay, I like to sleep on it, I want to sleep. Or when you taste some kind of food, okay, the burger is very tasty, or the chocolate is very sweet. Your tongue touches the food and gives you the sensation sweetness. Okay, so from then on you will have desires of that food or that comfort you continue to have. So what happens when you want something? You keep asking for it. Okay, you become attached to it. You keep clinging on to things that you actually like. Okay, because of that, you believe you exist. Okay? You believe that, okay, I experience comfort, so I as Gus am here enjoying my juicy burger with an icy cup of Coke. Okay, best treat for lunch. That's me. Okay, and so for that, it causes you to believe, okay, this self actually is there. If it is there, and I will continue to arise. And then you live this way until you pass away. But the moment you pass away, even though your physical body actually dies, your consciousness keeps all of these memories. Okay? There's a certain thing called deja vu, or a certain habit that you're born of without knowing. 有些人说我生下来就是很喜欢这样，我生下来就是很喜欢那样，我生下来就是怕黑。You know, I have been afraid of the dark since I was young. You know, I have become especially fond of chocolate ever since I was born. I don't know why. To explain why, you can sort of see back in that link. You have actually built in that habit or that seed in your consciousness that carries you into your next life. So in a way, you keep going in this cycle around and around again. Okay, so that's the way we kind of exist. Okay, so in the Buddha's birth, we can see in the previous chapter, he's sort of telling, okay, basically that's how we come in. And as a prince, he experienced the 5 desires, right? He was given the best form of life. Also something that human beings cannot live without. Okay? He basically categorized the desires into these to sort of show you as human beings we pretty much cannot live without any of them. For fame, right now you may not pay too much attention to it, but maybe once you enter the workforce or into society, it becomes more and more important to you. Okay? You need your name to be known in order for you to push your career forward and so on. You want to be famous because it gives you so much more convenience in life. And for the other 4, it goes without saying. You know, we are just going to discover that it becomes more and more important to us as our life continues. Okay. Now, then, these are the things that the Buddha saw when he left the palace. Okay, the basic things that he saw. But today I won't go into that, but to put in short, basically the Buddha says, okay, what I have actually become awakened is the fact that suffering is the root of our existence. Okay? It's the most important problem that we need to deal with right now. Okay? Be it the suffering caused by the simple process of life, which are these 4 simple things: birth, old age, sickness, and death. Or maybe something more involved without emotions. Okay? First of all, we already know, but number 5, unfulfilled desires. Okay? Something you want to do, but you cannot do. Or separation from loved ones. Okay? Why am I sitting in class? I should be with my girlfriend or boyfriend. Or I want to see my mom, but she lives in Taipei. All of these. And then number 7, painful, huh? When you're stuck with someone, when you have to do a group project and then you're stuck with someone whom you absolutely do not like. Okay, that's going to be suffering. Group project. Yes, group project itself is also a type of suffering because you don't want to do it. Okay? It's a desire to escape from that idea. Okay? Anything that you do. And number 5, when we say, okay, the flourishing of the 5 skandhas, once again, it has a little bit to do with your interpretation of the existence of the self. You know, basically it's a continued need to fulfill the desires of you as a person. Okay? What is your favorite hobby? What is your favorite food? What is the goal in your life that you must achieve? All of these things that you take yourself to be. And when you realize, okay, I myself cannot achieve these goals, of course, you will start to suffer. But we don't have much more time. I would like to sort of show you the 3 very basic ideas to sort of of the Buddhist idea. Go back to the problem with Buddhist teachings is that it doesn't come in one book, okay? It doesn't come in the Quran. It doesn't come in one Bible. It's not as easy in other religions. Okay, so I give you one book, you read this, you get the gist of it. And in Buddhism, there's called Sanjang Serbu, okay? You have thousands of volumes, different teachings, different interpretations. But we cannot go through all of these. But basically, we would say that whatever it is that the Buddha taught, okay, he gave us the 3 seals in saying that whatever it is that he became awakened to, have to apply to these 3 rules. So let's look at the first one. It says that there's a fact that everything you experience in the world will be impermanent. In other words, it cannot stay forever. Whether your happiness or you as an experience. And in that, I think there is an explanation of process. With a very important idea of this. All dharmas arise according to causes and conditions. All dharmas are liberated according to causes and conditions. So in a human being, we've seen that in the 12 links of dependent origination. These are the conditions to our human existence. But everything comes and goes like that. Okay? Everything has to have a right cause, applied with the right conditions in order to have an outcome. Okay? Say we've used the example of a tree and the sea. Okay? But what Buddha wants us to realize that in everything we do, we must depend on these conditions as well. Take this classroom as an example. In order for today's class to happen, okay, you have to be here. Okay? I have to be here. Okay? We have to actually put ourselves in the position of a speaker and an audience in order for a talk to happen. But for you, whatever it is, you also have to depend on a similar sense. Let me give you some examples. In saying that, okay, everything arises and ceases according to causes and conditions. It's time to think about how much chances or how much time you have left. Okay? So in the word 无常 or impermanence, it has a pressing feeling to sort of tell you, okay, everything passes very quickly. So are you actually seizing your opportunity? Okay? Say for example, there is a very famous movie that came out 2 years ago, 2012, 2012. Okay? What is the movie about? The end of the world, right? 2012 is about a movie that tells you how the earth falls apart because of earthquakes, storms, and so on. Okay? But if you have done a bit more reading on 2012, you'd realize it's actually from the Mayan prophecy. Okay? A Mayan prophecy that sort of actually tells you that the world, basically the world calendar comes to an end on December 21st, 2012. Okay? 2012年12月21号. So what day is today? 7th of November, okay? How many more days till December 21st? Less than 2 months, right? Okay, so in this Mayan prophecy it says that on the day of December 21st, the world is going to experience major tragedies. Earthquakes at the magnitude of 9. 震度9级的地震, okay? Superstorms, okay? And then floods, fire. All of these will strike the earth. And it might signify that the human being come to an end. Okay? So we have no time to dig into whether this is true or not. But given this consequence, this situation, okay, say if it is true that on that day the human race could come to an end, ladies and gentlemen, we have less than 2 months to live. What comes to your mind now? Now we have 2 months to live, I may as well start studying, forget about my group project, I'm just going to do whatever I like, and live the rest of my life happily. That's all what you want to do, right? But is there actually a little bit more? Okay? Can I put this situation onto you a bit further and say, ladies and gentlemen, say if it is true that on the 21st of this world will experience the so-called complete darkness and destruction. If you have only less than 2 months to live, what are the 3 most important things that you want to do right now? Think about it. What would you do? Okay. Name, would you like to share with us, if that's actually true, what would you do? Name the thing that you would do. Travel the world?
No, I just want to go to England. Because when I was little, I prefer to go to the main.
Okay, so in your situation, you would say if it is true that you go to a place that your favorite place on earth and enjoy your time there. Maybe. Okay. What about you? What would you do if 2012 was true? Pray. Pray for the next 2 months that it's not going to happen, right? And then it happens. Okay. Imagine what would happen. What about you? What would you do? Okay. So you won't become baptized if 2012 is true, right? So why? Share with us? This is actually very cool. It just comes to your mind. But why would you do that? Why is it actually important to you if it's the last few things you would do in life? Interesting. Okay. What about you? What would you do? Same. Oh, okay, traveling. Okay. And you?
Call my family and say something. And just do it. Say you love them.
Do it. Yeah. What would you say to your family when you call them?
就一般正常的，正常。
知道了，不然就洗。类似，我钱用完了。真的吗？你只会这样讲吗 ？What if it's the last chance to say talk to your parents?
把它当成就是去把不要太冲动。
Okay.
正常接受。
Okay. Try to keep your family calm. Yeah, keep them from the fear that the world will come to an end. Okay. What about you? What would you do?
Go back to my hometown
Okay. So that's actually from your answer. Most of you actually want to go to your favorite place in the world. Okay. But most of you would want the other half would want to spend time with your family, with your loved ones. Okay. And so I'm wondering if you have actually think about seriously doing this even without the message of 2012. Okay? For young people, we are healthy, okay? And we are living in an era of peace. So it's harder for us to really experience, the pressing pressure
of impermanence. But today we are faced with a very interesting example of 2012. And in a way, I think all of you do believe that the world is not going to come to an end. From your response, I can see that you're not scared of 2012, right? Which is a good thing because you have hope. Yeah, but the message right here, you say that, okay, all things are impermanent. It really needs to ask you, okay, even if you're young, will you actually hold on to your first opportunity to do the most important things in your life? Okay? So whatever it is, Buddhism is not telling you, okay, even if you're happy, it's going to pass. Whatever good things you have in your life, you're going to lose it eventually, so don't hold on to them. It's not saying that. Rather, it's telling you the opposite. Whenever you are reminded of that, okay, use your first opportunity to do the most meaningful thing in your life. Okay, so in 2012, whatever it is, if everything continues to change, pay your attention to that answer in your mind, the most important thing. Okay. Now, okay, the next item, we discussed a little bit about the fact that there's no self in everything. In every Dharma that the Buddha had taught, okay, there's no idea of the self. Okay? But, okay, in this case, it may sound like we're saying, okay, when Buddhism tells you that there's no self, okay, so that will not exist. But it really isn't that. Why? Because applying this to the rule of dependent origination, even our idea of self is a set of conditions. Okay? It's just like with different pieces of Legos plugged together to form who we are. Okay, so for you have your eyes, your ear, your hair, okay, to form, and your height. So when people see, the tall and skinny guy, that's Gus. Okay, a part of you is that. But there's also the part of your lifetime experiences, even your tendencies, and even your beliefs that forms who you are. But any minute, this could change, okay? So today, I could be the speaker. I'm standing right here. But I cannot say, okay, Miao Guang is a speaker. I myself is a speaker. I don't say that because the moment I step out of this classroom in 20 minutes, all of these conditions fall apart. But a lot of times, we don't realize that, okay? Say, imagine during the break, okay, you all got up and walked around. And then during the break, someone comes in and sits on your seat and starts to drink a drink and to write on your note. Okay, you may start to think, okay, what are you doing with my cup? What are you doing in my seat? What are you doing with my note? Okay, you start to feel uncomfortable because somebody has stepped into the zone of the self that you take to be you. But what if I tell you, applying the rule of impermanence, none of these are real. You're not really you at this moment. Okay? There's an idea that at the click of a finger, we would say 86,000 thoughts have already passed in your head. That's how fast your mind can move. Okay, so if your thoughts can change that fast, you as who you are will also be very different. Okay? So in saying that, maybe what you cling on to to be your true self. Say for example, I as Gus like to eat burgers. Maybe tomorrow it will be something different. Okay? So this could be handy when it comes to our personal interactions. Okay? When you talk to your friends, when you work, or when you are in a classroom, when somebody comes across and interacts in a way that makes you uncomfortable, usually we'd get angry, right? We'd get unhappy. Why are you treating me this way? But what does this mean? It's actually what I take to be myself, what I take to be my habit, what I take to believe in what it is, to be me. Okay? So in that content, you say that, okay, there's no self, no absolute self, because everything changes, and that, okay, if I continue to be attached to what I believe to be me, say for example, my food, okay, my seat, and so on, and then you will begin to get stuck with you as a person who wants to grow. Let me give you an example. We believe a lot of things that we can't take, or come across to be yourself. Okay, so naturally it becomes a part of us. Whatever happens to be a part of us, when changes happen to it, okay, it's going to affect you. So once there was a lady who went to the airport. Okay, she checked in early, and so she had about 2 hours to board. And so she decided to find herself a spot to wait. Okay, so she bought herself a book and then a bag of chocolate cookies. She went into the lounge because it was actually really full. So she was forced to share a table with someone else. She sat down across from a man, started to read her book. Okay, so she flipped through her book a few pages and then reached out to take a chocolate cookie from the bag. Okay? And then the man across from her smiled at her and also reached out and took the chocolate cookie without saying anything. Okay? So at that moment, the lady started to feel uncomfortable. She said, "Oh, okay, at least ask. You know, I'm not a stingy person. I can share, but you should be a bit polite." But she wanted to show her manners, so she didn't say anything. She smiled back. I can do without the loss of a cookie, so she went back to reading her book. A few more pages, she reached out for a second cookie again. And then the man smiled at her again and also took a cookie. So she started to feel very uncomfortable and thinking, you know, this man is really kind of taking advantage of her. But trying to remain calm, she tried to pretend that she was back into reading. Okay? But by that moment, she was no longer able to read anymore. Because all along, she was already very troubled with why the man was eating out of her bag of cookie. Okay, so in order to remain polite, she stayed calm, and in the next half hour, whenever she reached out for a bag of cookie, the man also did the same, until there was one last piece of cookie left in the bag. So she looked at the man, you know, smiled at him and think, okay, what are you going to do now? At least have a manner to let me have my last piece of cookie. Okay? But guess what the man did? He smiled back, reached out, took that last cookie, broke it in half, and gave her half. Shared it with her. And so by that moment, it was already boarding time, so she had no time to deal with her anger, so she had to quickly pack up her book and then board. And when she finally sat down on the plane, she said to herself, you know, I've had a really bad day. I came across a very strange man who was very rude to me, but, you know, I'm going on holiday, so I'm going to try to relax. So she decided to get back to the book. She opened her bag to take out the book. Guess what she saw after the book? She saw in her bag a complete new and unopened bag of chocolate cookies. So what happened? Yeah, she has been eating out of the man's bag of cookies all along. Okay? So what happened here? Did you think she enjoyed that bag of cookie even if it was her favorite food? No. How come she didn't enjoy the cookie? It was her favorite taste, chocolate. It was cookie, right? But she was so troubled by the fact that she believed that man was taking from her without her permission. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to my position? So she completely forget about enjoying the cookie. Okay? But all along, can I ask you this? Would the taste of the chocolate cookie be any different? The 2 bags of the chocolate cookie of the same brand would taste the same, right? So why have they become so different to this lady? Because of this attachment to the self. Finish this before we end. So that's what we might mean by saying, okay, you know, when you become so attached to what it is yours, you forget about why you're actually existing. Okay? And so if we understand that, okay, you know, like the cause and condition in there is for her to simply enjoy that bag of cookie. And then it will be, okay, it's telling me to stop. Yes. That's right, we're saying things in this world, in essence, don't change themselves. A table is a table. Okay, a chair is a chair. But today you get angry, you get upset, you get disappointed, you get happy over something that never changes in essence, but because of your own change of emotion and beliefs. These are the momentary thoughts and habits that form what you believe to be you. So what the Buddha wanted us to see, okay, is exactly that. If you can see for a moment that things are in only a continued change of process and that your emotions are never the real you, okay? Then there's no need for us to be dragged around by our environment because we continue to build our emotions with that. So that is what we mean by there's no substantial self in all that. Okay? So in taking that, hopefully steady from now on, when we try to achieve a goal in the process, can we find the strength to prevent ourselves from being angry or to create frictions with other people? Because you know that these are simply very miscellaneous things that should not affect your goal as a whole. There was a Chan master who actually planted a lot of flowers in the temple. And then one day his disciple broke his favorite pot of flowers. But instead of getting angry, the Chan master said, okay, I planted these flowers so I can make myself happy. I can make the temple look happy. I never planted the flowers to get angry. And so that's when you let go of your own self-beliefs and really start to pay attention to your surroundings. I think you will be a person who's had much more ease. So today, I think, I don't know, I was supposed to talk about a lot, but in these 2 hours, I hope we got a basic picture of who the Buddha was, what he actually wanted to demonstrate. And the fact that if we do realize, okay, if everything is continuously changing and that you as a self is not an absolute being, I think you will give yourself much more space to blending your world and your surroundings. And so for that, even if you're not a Buddhist, I hope you can be a happier person if one day these ideas actually cross your mind again. So we have, do we have any more time for questions or answers, or is this?
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Please, if you have any questions, please raise your questions.
Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? This. I asked a Buddhist nun in Australia, and she said these 3 means I love you.
Really?
No. It means you love the world. But technically, once again, these are what we call incense marks. 戒疤. 英文叫做 incense marks. 因为是用香珠点，那个 marks 就是有点像香疤留下来。那对我们出家人来讲，它其实代表的就是戒、定、慧。They represent 3 things that we should be constantly reminded of. The 3 continued practices that we as a Buddhist nun or monk should always bear in mind. It depends on the tradition of your temple. Yeah, in China, they could burn 12. My master had 12 burned onto his skull, and that was when he was about 19, right? But the Buddhist monk who burned the marks for him blew onto the incense too hard, so the 12 became 1. So they burned a big hole in his skull. And then he lost his memory. He couldn't really remember anything after that. It was quite tough because at 19 he had to study in the Buddhist college still, so they were required to memorize a lot of things. But to him, after that mark was burned, big hole, he couldn't even remember 1 line from the book. Also, 观世音菩萨. And you could chant it once and then in the next second you forgot. And you know what the Chinese education is like. When you don't remember anything, when you do your homework, 就打。所以那个时候很多人就是他的老师一直打他，这个人就是笨，这是傻，没有用。所以后来大师晚上，他就每天晚上就去拜观世音菩萨，一直拜，拜了好几个礼拜。但 就是拜完之后，他就是原则上我们在求观世音菩萨的时候，就会就是请求观世音菩萨保佑我，给我智慧。他一直拜了好像3个月之后，突然他的记忆又回来了，然后呢，过目不忘，他所看过的书，只要看过，他马上都能够完全记得。所以这个其实是蛮不可思议的事，就是说，我们求观世音菩萨，就是希望能够给我们一个智慧。那但是我觉得 ，to me， 就是在这个时候，其实 it's a sign of belief that at moments in your life when you are helpless, when you're hopeless, okay, turn to something you can believe in. You know, activate the power of your mind, and then anything can happen. Next time people ask, it means I love you. 还有问题吗？
穿衣服颜色，
这个，
因为我看有一个专科部的同学，他是灰色。
有灰色，有黑色，咖啡色，对不对？还有黄色。在佛陀时代，佛陀的弟子穿的衣服叫粪扫衣，粪扫衣就是用来做事的衣服。那有叫做坏色衣，那意思就是说颜色就是说要就是比较暗一点的，然后不怕脏的颜色。所以我们在寺庙不同的传统，你会看到有咖啡色、有黑色、有灰色。其实那个是从佛陀时代传统过来。那有时候我们看到这些颜色，有时候也就是说这些颜色是能够让人的心灵比较能够沉静下来的颜色。
所以没有分别。
其实还好，
没有人冷清，
没有，
它是道家。
对，佛教它其实没有分 ，there's no difference。
这个之前要训练连结吗？
我们出家之前是不是？像我们说出家众或是宗教师，其实在出家前跟后都要经过一段训练时间 ，a time of training. So we go to the Buddhist college， 叫做佛学院。那在佛学我们学规矩，然后我们学习就是出家人应该会的，像所谓的5堂功课。那早期在佛光山，我们煮饭都要自己劈柴，没有瓦斯，所以自己劈柴，然后自己烧火去煮饭。所以刚开始不会的时候我们常常煮出来的饭都是烧焦的，对，因为我们没有所谓的电锅，或是炒菜或是煮汤都会煮过头。那但是就是从那一点一点其实学习，我觉得倒是我们体验到了很多自己认为不可能做的事情，挑战自己的极限。比方说我们早上3点就要起来煮豆浆给300人吃，或是说我们有所谓的香灯，就是要打那个木板，就是告诉大家起床的。但是这个木板我们自己起来的时候不可以用闹钟，因为不可以打扰到大家。所以其实就有点像信念一样，我告诉我自己，我第2天我一定要在4点就起来。那真的。你如果说是催眠，或是说心念的力量，就是讲《秘密》那本书，它其实不是完全是错的，对，但是你要相信你自己心里的力量。其实学佛就是学你相信你自己，相信你自己的无限可能。Speaking of the power of the mind, can I do an exercise with you? Like we've said, what we have talked about today is all about believing in yourself, right? What you can do as a man or as a girl, right? So let's do a little exercise. Can you join your palms like this? Make sure the end of your palm and the tips of your fingers are joined. Okay, now look at your fingers. Are they the same? 一样，对不对？每一只手指头都一样，对不对？ Okay, now can you form a fist with your right hand and place it like this? Okay, close your eyes and tell yourself, the moment I open my eyes and rejoin my palms, my right hand will be bigger than my left. 当我再张开眼睛，再重新合掌的时候，我会发现我的右手会比左手还要大。我相信一定会。I believe it will. My right hand is now growing. It's actually becoming bigger. Yes, tell yourself it will be bigger. Give yourself that belief. Now open your eyes and rejoin your palms. 好，眼睛张开，我们再把它重新合掌。请问你的右手是不是比左手还要大？ Is your right hand bigger than your left? A little bit, right? 为什么会这样？因为你相信。对，这不是神奇，这是你自己心念的力量。那我们 不讲 mystery， 我们不讲 miracle，but you just made it happen。不可思议啊！
科学对脑袋的。
对，它其实就是科学现在慢慢跟佛法结合，然后就是在讲说，当你心念在想的东西，其实就是你脑袋的运作的时候，它是有能量改变世界的。对，这个如果你将来有兴趣的话，或许可以再慢慢研究。对，像很多心理学家现在就是跟佛教结合，他们就慢慢去发掘到大脑很多无限的可能。对，我们那边还有一个同学在试试看。
就像我现在比较相信，我不是活在世界之中，而是世界活在我之中。就是我眼睛看到的世界跟别人看到的世界是不一样，所以我看到的世界，就是他可能看到的东西跟我完全不一样。然后，可是我现在知道的世界是因为我脑袋跟我眼睛告诉我这个长这样。
华严经有一句话叫"心如工画师，能画种种物。Your mind is like a painter that paints the world." 所以照你现在的讲法，对你所看到的世界是由你的心所去创造的。但是我们千万不要忘记，即使这个是真的，我们都还是这个世界的一部分。我们要相信自己的信念，但是我们不能忘记，我们还是因为这个缘起法，我们从出生到死亡所做的每件事情都要仰赖世界所有的因缘。对，那如果你能够结合这两种想法的话，对，世界是我的，所以我有责任关怀我的世界，我有责任去爱护在我世界里面所有的人跟事跟物，那你的世界就会变得比较好。那如果没有的话，我想就是今天谢谢蔡老师给我这个机会啊。那我看到大家就是 I think it's actually quite encouraging to see that in Taiwan classes are given in English. That means a lot of English speakers are gathered around Taiwan. So just maybe an opportunity or an invitation from me to you. Next year in August, for a week, we will have 1,200 university students from 400 universities of the world, over 40 countries. 我们每一年夏天呢，都有来自40个国家、400所大学，大概1200位的青年聚集在山上参加一个生命禅学营。It's called an International Youth Seminar on Life and Charm. We gather young adults from around the world who come together to spend time, get to know each other, and also have classes on exploring life and the self. 我们探讨生命，我们探讨禅学，我们探讨世界。所以明年我们是在8月1号会在佛光山。那希望将来，我觉得大家都有这样的一个语言能力啊，希望大家也能够利用这个机会，到时候可以能够来跟这些学生做交流。那时间比较接近的时候，就是再把这些相关的讯息给老师这一边，也希望老师能够推荐同学一起来跟这些世界级的这些大学生一起交流。So thank you for the opportunity. I hope it has been a fruitful 2 hours for you. I've enjoyed my time here. Thank you very much.